From the banks of the Allegheny, welcome to Film Bits 7, Part 2. So, Somerset had just finished the investigation at the Fat Man murder place, and we had cut to the car with a shot of Brad Pitt, and that's where we're going to pick it up right now. Rain. Torrential. More sirens. Lights coming through. That is a big boy. Great camera move to give us rare shots of that large body. As we've seen, aside from the fact that Somerset is apathetic and wants to get out of his job, and Pitt's like the brand new puppy and very excited to be here. Just look at how the lighting is set up here. I mean, this movie is set in a lot of dim, and we see a lot of rain, shadow, darkness. That's huge until we get to the very end. We see 3 internal lamps plus the little banker's light over on the file cabinets way over to the left. Light coming in from the windows that appears gloomy. It doesn't have that like sunlight vibe to it. And I just like the composition of the shot, the way it looks, the tones of the wood, the browns, the darks. You know, it just really sets the overall palette for this movie, which is dull, dingy, neutral.
We've got one dead guy, not 3.
No motive.
Don't even start that big brain of yours cooking on this, all right? Please.
So here is two things that we get there. That's the second time someone has told Somerset not to think. One was the cop at the first homicide early in the movie, and now his superior officer, captain, lieutenant, I don't know the rank of the guy, is also telling him not to think. This is a homicide detective. He should want him to think. But what Somerset is positing is that we have a serial killer. He says this is just beginning. And the captain doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it because that just means a lot of headache and press and bad news, etc., etc., etc. Also, Somerset is making the point that this guy, 2 things. One, when you want someone dead, you just kill him straight out. This guy was tortured. Our man who will soon have a name but doesn't yet. But in addition to it, the killer went out and got more food. So it wasn't enough that he torture him and then have him die. He had a prescribed amount of time he wanted the victim to suffer. And there's an aspect of patience here. There's an aspect of risk here. So whoever this killer is, he's very, very patient. He doesn't mind the risk, or he's meticulous enough to anticipate the risk, deal with the risk, and not get caught. And Somerset is catching all of this. Mills is like, don't ask me, I've been out in the rain all day. Mills doesn't have that sharp of vision because he doesn't have the time and the years that Somerset does. All right, but Mills is going to need to come up to speed really quickly if they're going to be working this case together. Tuesday. Love the font. Murder has a new uptown address. Defense attorney found murdered. And the press. And notice all the darkness, even inside that building with all that light coming into the window, all that silhouette and shadow to start it all off. And this is one of the brightest things we're going to see until the last half hour. The great Richard Roundtree, Shaft, playing the DA or mayor, whatever he is. People talking a bit about Mills. I like the camera work there, following him both in front and back. Now we've come into some kind of scene here. Looks like there's an investigation, a cleanup. Must be the murder that was on the newspapers. Oh, nope, be that guy. So this is the new case Mills is working. Oh, there we go. Greed. Greed written in blood on the floor. And then there's a big old pile of blood. Love this shot. Let's just look at that shot. A big old pile of blood there with some kind of like stand or table or what have you. Really like how Pitt is, or Mills is perched between the two. This is a lawyer. And now we have the word greed. and a lot of blood was spent. And Mills is looking around, and he looks a little bit perhaps over his head, particularly when the DA said this will be the definition of swift justice. Mills realizes this is not going to be swift justice because I don't know what's going on. And then an extra clue. Bloody mask over that woman's eyes. They're already getting rid of Somerset's name. Can't even let him get out the door. They're already scraping it off.
Wrote the word greed on the floor.
So that shot behind Somerset. I think Fincher shifts the camera behind Somerset so when he looks to the left over to this captain, we get the impact. We as the viewer know, he's putting two murders together here. Something is going on in his head. And then we shift to this shot. He stopped typing. He pulls off his glasses and he takes that slow recline backwards. All actions indicative of, he's not just blowing this off, he's considering it. He's thinking it, and why greed? But stuff is rolling through his head. Mills is just stuck. Also, very interesting too, this shot shows all that fluorescent light. Yet, I mean, it's kind of lit in here, but I wouldn't call it well lit, and we still see lots of shadows. Look at over there by the dartboard, looking at the wall against Somerset is. We've got a little bit of light trickling in through the shutters. This is, again, one of the more well-lit scenes we will see, but there is a ton of light. Granted, it's not in Somerset's office, but I think Fincher is at times playing with the light and the darkness and the shadows almost intentionally. He's almost teasing us as if that light is forever out of our grasp. We're never going to get that much light and that much bright in this movie. And when we do, it's going to be a little deceptive. Such a No Country for Old Men line. I don't understand this place anymore. That's the way it's always been, says the captain. That even though No Country for Old Men came about a decade later, a little more than that, the sentiment, the old cop who, what the heck kind of freaky crime is stabbing someone in the eyes? Who does that? And he's like, you don't think I can retire? Oh, trust me, I can retire. But the captain wants to keep it along because he knows he's a good cop. And the captain's trying to say, this isn't freaky. It's not that you don't understand it. It's the same as it's always been. Very similar themes in No Country. In fact, it's the title of the film, No Country for Old Men. That's why it's No Country for Old Men, because the old men just don't get it. And Somerset's now part of that cinematic pantheon of cop characters that are fed up with a world they see changing. Pick it back up. Back to the fat man's house. And just the dinge and the grime and the real shadowy nastiness. There was roaches all over this place last time. So little pieces of plastic were fed to the fat guy. Somerset was probably hoping he gets through his 7 days and no other lead pops up on this case. And now he's got one, and he has to deal with it. 10 count of bean and cheese burrito in there. Looking pretty good. I wouldn't mind one. And now he notices it. Grooves. Grooves caused by the sliding of a refrigerator. And the word gluttony written in grease, I think. So, Somerset, pretty clever dude. I also want to think this murderer's a pretty clever dude. He fed these pieces to the fat man, knowing that they would be found upon autopsy, and knowing they'd either miss a clue or if a smart detective got a hold of them, they would see where these little groove shaving things came from. They would deduce to move the refrigerator because that's what caused it. And then they would see the note and the word gluttony written back there. So now we have a gluttony murder and a greed murder. And the pattern of the 7 deadly sins is starting. And next time, Somerset's going to get into all of that. And he and Mills's cases are going to intersect, and they're going to have to work together. Sorry, I said a lot. There's a lot to say. It's a great movie. I'll try and keep them briefer, but it's film bits. We'll be going about 15 minutes an episode, 10 to 15 minutes an episode for the film, and then I'll babble on for as much as I feel I need to. Take care, you guys. See you next time.